Okay, so in this video I'm going to show you how to make a pom-pom, and first we have to make a pom-pom maker. So I have a piece of cardboard. Mine is like corrugated cardboard. So I'm going to hold it this way so that the lines of the cardboard, because they can bend easy that way, so I want it to go this way. So you don't want to hold your cardboard this way because you can bend it and you need it to be sturdy. So I measured this piece to be 5 inches because I want a decent sized pom-pom. And I find that doing this method, I need to trim them. So I want to make it a little bit bigger so I have some room to do that. So I'm going to mark it off 1 inch. And I'm going to draw a line there. So what I'm actually doing is just making kind of like a frame around this. And on this side it doesn't really matter. You can do more or less than 1 inch. It doesn't really, it's not, you just need a hole in the center. It does not exactly have to be anything specific. So I'm going to kind of poke my scissor through, and I got to cut this hole out. So the best way to do that with a scissor, you can use a knife if you have it, is to kind of go to the corners and cut to those corners first. I find that to be the easiest way to do it. And then I can get my scissor in there and I can cut that piece out. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect. We just need a hole in the center. Sometimes if you see these online and you look at it, they would have it as a circle in the center, and actually the whole thing can be round. I have actually a pom-pom maker that I bought, and they do sell them at Michael's, but this works just as well. And it's a lot easier than going to the store. Okay, so that's all scrap. Okay, so this is all you need to make a pom-pom. But you can kind of see how this is kind of a little on the flimsy side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reinforce it a little bit with some masking tape, just to stiffen it up, because I am going to wrap some yarn around that. So I'm going to just go around this a little bit, just to make it a little bit sturdier, maybe a couple of times. Because this is the section that I'm going to work on, so that's what I want to really get stiff. So I'm just going to wrap around there. And now I'm going to reinforce the bottom section. I don't really need to do the sides. I think it'll be okay without doing that. But if you find that this starts to bend while you're working, you might have to restart and then reinforce that. Okay, that should be enough. And again, it doesn't have to be neat, it just needs to be sturdy. Okay, so this is really the section that we're working in. So now I'm going to take my ball of yarn. You can use multiple colors if you want. So instead of wrapping it with one strand, mine's going to be all the same color. You could take 2 different colors of yarn in your hand at the same time and wrap with that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start wrapping around this center section. And I'm going to do it a lot because I really want to get this to be a big ball. So you can see how I'm doing that. If you make this a little bit smaller, you can use a little bit less. But like I said, I want it to be pretty decent size, as well as, and I'm not pulling on it because I don't really want to bend my frame that I made, but I am going to wrap this a lot. Okay, so I'm going to pause you and I'll come back when it's... Okay, so my frame is bending a little bit. It doesn't really matter because I said that I was making this bigger. So I just continued to wrap it until I have like a decent amount. Like I can really like fill in my whole hand when I grab that. So now I'm going to cut off the yarn and I'm going to cut myself a long piece of that same yarn. And I'm going to take it and I'm going to stick it through the one side and then bring that same piece of yarn through the other side so that I have both ends on top. And I'm going to tie a super tight knot, double knot it, triple knot it, and you might have to have somebody hold their finger here. I'm going to kind of do it by myself, but if you have somebody push down on that, you can make it even a little bit tighter. So you really want to get that knot tight in the center. And the reason mine bent a little was because when I was wrapping it a little bit on the tight side. And I'm going to double knot, even triple knot this. Okay, now comes the cool part. These two are really important. These two strings that we tied it together with, you do not want to cut them. But I'm going to take my scissor now, and I'm going to go along the edge of the frame that I made, and I'm just going to snip all of these pieces of yarn. Sometimes you have to go a little at a time. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, keeping in mind where that is, as you do not want to cut those. Try not to cut your frame in case you want to make another one. And I probably, if I were to use this one again, I think I would reinforce the ends. Okay, so now, oh, I got one more. You have to make sure you cut all of your strings, no more loops, and then you can take it out. And now you have something that looks like this. And it needs a haircut. So I'm going to trim this down so that it looks a little fuller. If you make your frame a little bit smaller, you might have to cut off less. And you're just kind of trimming it until you get the shape. I just kind of shake it a little bit and look for the longer pieces, and then just kind of trim those a little bit. And the more you trim it down, the more you're going to get like a tighter ball. You could continue to wind and wind and wind and make it much thicker, and then it will be less open than mine is. It'll be more dense with the yarn. But I'm just doing a quick one to show you how it's done. And they only take a couple of minutes, so if you didn't like the first one, you could certainly do it over. Okay, all right, that looks pretty good. Okay, now the important part of these two pieces here is that we are going to use them to tie it onto the hat. Okay, so now I'm going to get the same hat that I made before from the crochet, and I am going to get the needle that I used to weave through the ends, and I'm going to take one of my ends that I tied it on with and put it through my needle, and I'm going to go to the top of my hat and I'm going to stick it through, and then just pull it so that the end comes out. Then I'm going to go back and find my second one, put that through my needle, and just make sure that you don't put it through the same spot because you want to be able to tie it together. So that one's over here, so I'm going to stick it over here. It's not going to make a difference if it's all the way across because you're not going to see it. Okay, so now I'm going to turn my hat inside out, take those two ends and really knot them a couple of times so it's nice and tight on there. Okay, and then I am going to weave these ends through just a little bit. You never want to cut something right next to a knot because that knot is really holding everything together. So if I were just to cut that off, this could easily come undone. So I'm going to just do like I did before and weave through a little bit, again in any direction because it doesn't matter, and it's better to go in different directions so that it doesn't come loose on you. And there we go. Alright, so I can cut that one off and then weave the other one through. This is just reassurance that it doesn't come open when you're wearing it or whatever. They also sell fur pom-poms if you wanted to go on Amazon. I've actually purchased real fur ones. They have fake fur of all different colors. So if you wanted to look into something like that, they also have those. Right? And those are just as easy to sew on. They're just pre-made. Okie dokie. Alright, so here we take this, cut that off, and here is our hat with our pom-pom on the top. All right? Good luck. Have fun. See you around.